Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and I am here with my friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman, but not here physically because for the second week in a row, Max is actually still on the road. Max, where are you right now in the world?
I'm in Ontario, Oregon.
Oh.
But we have a day off today. We played Salt Lake City for the second time ever in our career last night. And gotta say, my least favorite city in America, I think.
I like that you're just being very blunt. What makes it your least favorite? How did the show go?
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. The people at the show were very nice, and we're grateful when anybody shows up to an Arkells show. So I want to get that out of the way with first, so that the people could not have been nicer. I met a bunch after the show. Some people drove from Idaho. It was a small crowd, but some people drove from Idaho. Some people drove from Provo, which is where BYU University is. So those people were all very nice. But it was just kind of a very weird... It's a very strange place because it's very regulated, by the rule of the Mormons in that church, and you really feel it. They at bars apparently they don't serve any alcohol on tap that's more than 3.2% alcohol. Did you know that?
I didn't, but you could drink all night on that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, no one's hung over there. It's actually quite smart. And the natural beauty around the city is really impressive. That you're just kind of in the mountains, but the city itself is like sort of very suburban. We were just kind of walking around, and I met up with the guys after the show to get some Cajun food. They found the one place that was open. And it was a Monday night, and I walked. It was about a kilometer away, so I walked, 15 minutes ago, and I get to the bar, and I realized that I didn't have my driver's license with me because I left them in my gym shorts. So I give the guy my health card, and he says it's not good enough, and I'm just like, really? Like, the bar is basically empty. I'm joining that table over there. We're all like roughly around the age of 30. And I was not allowed in the place. And it was really interesting because I almost was going to start throwing stuff. I'm pretty mild-mannered, Mike.
Absolutely. You don't throw a lot of tantrums, Max.
No. And, I'm typically like pretty understanding when it comes to people in the service industry. I like to think that like I treat waiters and bartenders like pretty nicely.
Well, as a former Eastside Mario's employee, you have to have empathy.
Exactly. No, I know how hard these people work, and I know they don't necessarily make the rules, but I was gonna lose my shit, and it's just kind of funny when you put yourself in. And that's why, generally speaking, I have some sympathy when people turn into total maniac assholes, like in a public setting, because I just remember like the times that I've been there, and you just like kind of lose control. And then, so I was like, this cancel because I'd called ahead so I could catch up with the guys because their food was going to be coming soon too. So I called ahead and put an order in, because I was going to be there in 10 minutes. That's a very Max like life hack move, by the way. I was like, cancel my meal. I'm not giving you the business. And I kind of like stormed out, and like I had to walk another probably 30 minutes just to find like some Mexican food that I ate by myself. But then also the streets are kind of totally empty, and this guy who's also walking down across the street, he just sort of stops when he sees me. And keep in mind, I'm probably like 40 meters away from this guy, and he just like pulls out his phone and takes a photo of me in the dark with the flash on. It was so weird.
Why do you think he did that?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Was he at the show earlier?
No. This is a random person, like an hour after the show was finished. So, and it wasn't anywhere near the venue. It was just like a random guy taking me a photo. So anyway, I'm kind of spooked out by Salt Lake City.
It's fine. People have bad experiences in places.
Okay. So anyway, moving forward, we have a few more shows left, and then I'll be home, and I miss you guys.
Yeah, we miss you. All this stuff's been going on back home. We've been having a lot of fun, but you're out, you're doing your thing.
Hey, but I'm curious. I missed the big move-in to your new place, and our listeners should know, in the Champagne Boys group, there's a roughly 15, 20 of us, and whenever anybody moves, it usually turns into a party, which is kind of fun because everybody chips in. Whoever's moving buys people the pizza and the beer. How did it work though for you? Because Danika has her whole crew, and she's like not exactly the drunken fool that the rest of us are. So how did it go?
So we kind of moved in over the course of like the Thursday and the Friday, just kind of ourselves. Danica's family was amazingly helpful. Her sisters did were like washing walls. Like they were making the house look amazing, which was really impressive. And then, and all the Champagne Boys were kind of like, when can we help? And I was like, actually, like, there's just not a ton of stuff. We kind of had it covered. So then on the Saturday, the house was kind of set up, at least like 75% set up. And Danika was having some of her girlfriends over. And I was like, well, all the guys are curling down the street here in Hamilton, but I think they might come by after for some drinks. Like, what do you think? She's like, absolutely. Tell them all to come by. That turned into a complete boozy buffoons great night. So
they didn't help with the move, but they did help with the drinking part.
Yeah, they did not help with the move, but they drank all my beer, which again is fine because I've certainly done that to all of them at different points in my life, so I have no problem with that. And I kind of lose time at the end of the night, but apparently everyone went to like the bar on the corner, and I was kind of sleeping on the couch, but it was a great time all around, and you were missed.
Well, okay. Well, I can't wait to see the place. Hey, also in other Champagne Boys related news, at the show in Chicago we had a couple days ago, I was just talking to some people that were the show that came to see the band, and this girl, she's probably, I don't know, I gotta say like 18 years old. She comes up to me and she just goes, "We need to get the nut on the podcast." And I was like, hold on a second. What the hell did you just say? And I was like, where are you from? And she's like, from somewhere like in Illinois or something. She listens to the show, so I'm probably getting that wrong. Maybe Indiana. But super nice. And she's like, yeah. I was like, can you say that again? I'm going to film you. So I filmed her saying, we need to get the nut on the show. And then I said, what show? And she said, the Mike on Much podcast. So guys, our audience is growing. I sent the video to the nut, and he was so happy. He said, please post this to the Mike on Much Instagram account. I think we'll do that. Because we need to celebrate little victories like this. Our growing audience in America. We're taking over.
Yeah, and I think that it's a good idea to have the nut on the podcast. So whenever he does come on this podcast to maybe defend himself against maybe past accusations by Shane and whatnot, we will promote that episode with that video.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. I'm very excited for that. So that's great.
All right, but Max, this is a big show because our guest today is a really big star. I mean, it's Backstreet Boy Nick Carter.
I know. When we found out that we were going to get to interview him, I was very excited. I think on a certain level, he is more recognizable as a name and as a face than a lot of other people we've had on the show. Nick Carter and the Backstreet Boys were literally the biggest thing on planet Earth for like a good 2-3 year window there in the 90s, early 2000s.
Well, and because of that, because this guy's been, famous essentially since he was like 14 years old, he's had a pretty interesting sort of life. And I think that those are the sort of things that we wanted to talk about when we sat down with him. And I mean, for people that don't know, this one was actually filmed because it was Nick Carter and he's a big star. We actually filmed this one, so it was kind of different. But what you're hearing is sort of the audio recording of what we did.
Yeah, you know what? So this is sort of like some inside baseball information for our listeners. Oftentimes when we are interviewing a very famous person, and I throw Nick Carter into that category, the publicist will say, please don't talk about this, or this. And Nick his publicist had some requests that, with some subjects that we don't go into. This is no different than when we interviewed David Arquette. This is no different than we interviewed a number of other people who just had requests that, there's certain things that are off limits.
Josh Groban was one of them.
Josh Groban, yeah, another one. And we generally respect, those wishes, and we want to be sort of affable hosts, and we want people to feel good about coming onto the show. But I am kind of excited sometimes when they bring up something that was off limits, because Arquette referenced his wife, and I don't think we were supposed to talk his ex-wife.
Yeah.
Was there anything that Carter brought up that you're like, oh, okay, I'm surprised he mentioned that?
Well, I guess he'd gotten in some trouble in Florida. He got in a bar fight or something. So, they were just like, let's not go into that incident specifically or any sort of past substance things. So we're like, all right. But I mean, we were talking about his new album. And a lot of the subject matter, if you listen to the album, which we did in research, is about like partying in Tijuana or, getting crazy. And there's a lot of that sort of content. So, we wanted to sort of ask, are you writing from personal experience? And specifically in this situation, if you're someone that doesn't really want to talk about these things, but then you sort of put it in your music, we're going to end up coming around to it. So we kind of went down that road a little bit, and then
when you have a song called Tijuana, you're kind of asking for it, right?
I think so. I mean, but he kind of got out of it. We got into some of sort of the minutia of growing up in one of the biggest bands in the world and sort of what he learned out of that. The one question I wanted to ask him that I didn't get to ask him was, if you had to be stuck on a desert island with one other Backstreet Boy, which Backstreet Boy would you choose? And I didn't get to ask him that.
Yeah. Man, that would have been amazing. Should we just guess before we get to the interview? Who do you think you'd go with?
Oh, good question.
Okay, this is what I'd say. Not knowing any of these guys personally or really knowing much about the Backstreet Boys, I don't think you'd go with Howie. Too small, I think you want someone who's like maybe a little bit more muscular.
You're gonna help build the shelter.
Yeah, AJ, I think he'd be like, he'd start freaking out pretty quickly. I don't know, he might try to, attack me or something. So I wouldn't go with AJ. I think it comes down to Brian or Kevin, and I think I'm gonna go with Kevin. Brian is a little too much of a pretty boy. I think Kevin would be the most helpful.
You're picking him based on physical stature, aren't you?
Yeah, and my general vibe I get from them based on like what 14-year-old Max thought of the Backstreet Boys. Yes.
So really, this isn't about who Nick Carter would pick. Max would pick Kevin if he got stuck on a desert island.
Yeah, but as Nick's advisor, that's what I would say. Hey, Nick, you should get Kevin.
All right.
To join you on the island. Who would you choose?
You made a very good argument. I would go with Kevin. I think he'd be able to do the most work. We'd be able to build a hut. I think he could like maybe kill an animal or something so we could survive.
Oh yeah, big time.
All right, let's get to Nick Carter.
I always wonder, do they put these posters in like because they know someone's coming?
Did you notice the Nick Carter poster?
I noticed it.
Oh, that's staying now. Absolutely.
You're so
gonna have to
funny.
sign it on the way out. Yeah. That means we're starting.
Start it.
All right. So you have a new record, All American.
Yes.
You're doing press, you're touring. Having already accomplished so much in music, I mean, what motivates you to get back on the grind, sort of produce new music, get on the road?
I think every time I start a new project, it's an opportunity for me to try something new. Whether it's a different sound or just a new experience that can teach me something. So what motivates me is just that unknown. What's going to happen when I jump in, and try it and do it and actually. So I mean, things like that. I enjoy as a solo artist being able to perform that music because it's a little different than what I do with Backstreet Boys. It has more of a rock inspired feel to it, and I enjoy performing that way.
I mean, creating your own music, having your own record, sort of being the sole creative voice. You've worked with so many people over the years. Someone like Max Martin, who's sort of this like hit-making genius. Right. How does the writing process with someone like Max Martin work? Meaning melody, lyrics, production, and then how do you sort of incorporate that into what you're creating with All American?
Well, I'd like to say that most of the producers and writers that I've worked with or been associated with in the past have rubbed off on me in a lot of ways. I mean, it just goes with anything, and anybody. If you spend enough time around them, they kind of become a part of you. So there are certain principles and values that and things that I stand for when I write music and I try to apply. And I take that from all those writers and producers, and then kind of put my own little twist on it. And the one thing is that I'm always learning on the job, so to speak.
Right.
So every time I try something new, I might not be the greatest at it. I might not be the greatest writer, but I do see a progression that has happened from my first album to the second solo album to this latest solo album. And I think even more just a direction and where I want to go and how I want to be perceived and just as a solo artist goes.
Right. I'm always interested when I talk to, songwriters or people that are creating sort of art or music, the subject matter of your songs, right? It's like you're going to draw either from personal experience or maybe you're telling a story about somebody else. Have you ever taken a step back and go, you know what, I actually don't want to put that in a song because it reflects on me? Or do you go, no, shit, I'm an artist and I'm going to put that in my music?
Usually I don't put barriers on anything that I write or talk about, which sometimes gets me in trouble. Especially, coming from a boy band and coming from, in the very beginning when things were kind of regulated, I think that's why a lot of probably people enjoy, our fans enjoy what we do individually, because we don't hold back and we kind of say what we want to say. So yeah, like I and also too, like it's entertainment, sometimes like a perfect example on this new record, there's a song called Tijuana that I wrote. And I wrote it because I've had bar experiences. I've had things that have happened and everyone's kind of partied and done their thing. And like, I'm like, well, obviously I've had a couple of experiences that I can put into this song. But at the same time, just like writing a movie or whatever, I'm going to make up a lot of it, And so I was able to play with that song.
So some artistic license, but then also some personal experience.
Exactly. Everybody's going to put a little bit of what their experiences into anything that they're writing and kind of use it to help out with what they're trying to achieve. And that song, it's just a riot. It's a fun song. And that's like one of the things in this entire album that I wanted to focus on was I wanted to create an album that was almost like some of the songs I wanted it to be as if you were watching like a Seth Rogen movie or something like that, And that's kind of like if you listen to Tijuana, it has like a little bit of like the Hangover type vibe to the song, So, but then the album in its entirety, I wanted it to almost like a musical. It's like a rock musical, like a pop rock musical.
Yep.
And so it has a little bit of that, goes in and out. But the stories are so rich on this record, which I'm happy with. I'm happy that they're deeper, not just like, and I think maybe that's just because I've gotten older and I've started to realize what I want to be as a writer. And then also some of the things that I've experienced in my life, such as, creating movies. This is helping me as a writer as well, as a musician. So it's all those things that kind of come together.
What do you listen to?
I'm very strange. I like literally. It's the weirdest thing. Like last night, I was on the bus with my bodyguard and some of my band guys, and like I was listening before the show to Slipknot, and then right before that, I was listening to Genesis.
Okay.
And then before that, I was listening to 50 Cent's new song.
So you jump all over the place.
Yeah, I can't like choose one thing. I guess that's just kind of like who I am. I've been influenced by so many things, and I'm not ashamed of that. And so that's why sometimes it's actually hard to rein it all in when I am focused on, okay, what do I want to do as a solo artist? Because a lot of people. Well, in the past, I think people weren't so open. Nowadays, it's changing a little bit. People enjoy variety, so it's an interesting time.
You've had life experiences that only like a handful of people can maybe sort of relate to. When you think about your career as a whole, like what moments or things stand out the most to you?
Probably like recently, the Dancing with the Stars moment was pretty crazy for me because it was just so much work. It took so much out of me and it required so much. And I'm such a perfectionist, and when I commit to something, I want to be the best at it. And I think that that was a standout moment for me, getting that far. Moments like meeting the guys for the first time in my band, in Backstreet Boys, starting that whole process, thinking. It was so funny. I was talking to someone on the way back here, or on the way over here, and I said, wow, I'm actually really surprised at how many, because we were talking about another boy band that actually didn't really make it.
Sure.
And it's amazing how many people don't actually get this far. And I'm so appreciative and, just happy and grateful that I am where I am right now. So it's just, I don't know why they got off on that tangent, but I just think it's interesting how, how you get to where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of, the Backstreet Boys and that longevity, I mean, you're so successful at such an early age. Were there times when you thought like, well, man, like I've done it all and I'm still only 19 years old. Like what's next? Did you have like a reflective moment?
I mean, it's hard to pick like the moments that when you're in that moment. I mean, when I was 19 years old, I was conflicted in a lot of ways. I wanted to be a teenager and I wanted to enjoy, what everybody else was in high school or college or whatever. I wanted to do the same things and I couldn't, So I was definitely conflicted at that time, and I had. We were releasing Millennium for the first time,
yeah,
and all these huge songs like I Want It That Way, and Larger Than Life, and there was a lot of responsibilities that I had at that time. So, it's hard to reflect. Well, now that I reflect back, actually, and I see now how hard it was actually for me. Because it was like two separate lives. Like I would come off the road, I'd be doing all these extraordinary things, and I'd come off the road and try to be normal.
A normal 19-year-old hanging out with
and it wasn't
friends.
working for me. So I think I had to come to a point in my life where I had to accept that I was just different, and it wasn't gonna be normal in a lot of ways.
But that becomes normal though for you.
But
right?
It becomes normalcy. Yes, exactly. So.
Being in the public eye for more than 20 years, what parts of celebrity do you find difficult or wish you could change?
I mean, I've become used to it now, so it's become a part of me, like I said. I wouldn't change anything now. I mean, I've found my sort of rhythm, like my beat.
Right.
And...
You're comfortable in this pocket?
I found a good spot. Yeah, I found a good place. And that took a long time to get here. And all that confliction that I actually had when I was 19 years old, was a problem for me. It was hard and to get to this point. So, I wouldn't change anything.
Sure. On the other side, I mean, what's the best part about being famous? That's what people always want to know.
There's... the good side about being famous is that you can actually do something positive with it. When you have time and when you can do it. One of the things is giving back in any sort of way. In a lot of ways, I try to look at what I'm doing from the positive side of things, of saying that, okay, well, if someone comes to my show or they come to a Backstreet Boys show, they're escaping from their reality for, that whatever moment it is, and my job is to entertain them, mm-hmm. and so in a lot of ways that's maybe I'm justifying that it's a certain point of giving back. Obviously, there's the humanitarian type of things that I'm actually going to do a lot more of, especially when I get some more time and the baby comes. So.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you're going to be a father.
Yeah,
which is pretty exciting stuff.
It's out of this world. It's still hard to believe.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think. Yeah, I'm excited. I always enjoy experimenting and trying new things. I'm not saying that my wife was an experimentation. What I am saying is that the adventure of sort of fatherhood is something I'm not used to. I haven't done it yet. You know what I mean? I'm 36 years old, so obviously I'm getting a little older, and I want to experience that. I want to try that, and it's sort of an adventure, and that unknown. I don't know. It inspires me.
Yeah, it's a new frontier.
Yeah, I love it.
Is it something you always wanted? Thinking back,
I didn't want it.
No.
No, I didn't want it. When I was 19, you want to go back? When I was 19 years old, I was like, no, I don't ever want to have a baby. I don't ever want to have a kid. But who wants to at 19, right? You know, so things change. I love my wife. I love us. I love what we have done. I love what she's helped me do, as far as. Support me and help me become the person that I am. I think without her, I definitely would not be to the point where I'm at right now, where I could be doing all these things. So I think experiencing that together is something that is a reward.
As your son gets older, he comes to you and he says, "Dad, I want to be in showbiz. I want to be an entertainer." What do you say?
I don't know. To be quite honest with you, I'm going to try to hide him from it for quite some. I don't want to expose him to what it is and what I am and what I've done too early, because I want him to make a choice for himself, obviously, and I don't want to influence that, I think that, I'm gonna be very protective to a certain degree, obviously, but at the same time, I think he'll discover later on, what I've done, who I am, and that's going to be amazing and cool when we can talk about that. But I don't want him to be. I want him to be fascinated with myself and my wife because we're good parents,
Sure.
not because I was Nick Carter from Backstreet Boys or I'm some superstar.
Yep.
So like I don't want to. Yeah. So I mean that's pretty much what it is.
Lastly, I want to ask, anyone that wanted to break into showbiz, what advice would you give them? But firstly, what's the best advice you received over the course of your career, whether it's from a peer, one of the guys in the Backstreet Boys, someone older? What's the thing that you took with you that someone told you along the way that helped you?
So interesting. We've said this a lot, and maybe you haven't heard it, but one of the Temptations, actually, when it was the lead guy.
Otis.
It was Otis, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I was really young. I was about 15. Actually, I was about 13 or 14 when I met him, and we were doing this show in Florida, like a fair type thing.
Sure.
We were opening up, and so we got a chance to talk to him, and he said, guys, I got one bit of advice for you guys. Make sure you're watching your business, while you're on stage, because it's called show and business for a reason. And because you could be on stage performing and doing your show, but your business could be walking away, from you. So it always stuck.
Wow. And then you'd impart that on to anyone else getting into the industry.
We listened to it, but some business walked away a little
Shit
bit
happens.
here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it just stuck and it rang, because it's a business, and at the same time, you got to learn how to balance it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, man.
Thank you.
We are now in what we like to call the dessert of the episode. But again, this week, it's just Shane and I because Max is still out on tour. Shane, we actually just listened to the Nick Carter interview, which you were there for. So you weren't with us off the top of the show. Any thoughts on that whole thing?
It was surreal. Like everyone grew up listening to that guy. Well, I guess if you're a guy, you kind of said you didn't, but we all did, right? So it was very, very weird to see him in the flesh. As you know, you and I used to watch House of Carters 10 years ago. We were obsessed with that show. We'd use it as like our pre-drink, like a guilty pleasure or whatever. And then one night, his sister was on the show too, Leslie.
Yes.
And then
his sister passed away. This is his sister that passed on, but she was on the show.
And she was a musician also, so she played a show at Casbah.
In Hamilton. She had a band.
Hamilton. And so she was on House of Carters, had a show in Hamilton. I'm like, I'm going to that show.
Yeah.
Went. She got a little bit lit afterwards. Kind of was like, Shane, and like hanging off me a bit. It was very cool. And I was like, holy shit, I just like partied with a celebrity. And then I found out she died. So it kind of like, I was like, whoa, I knew that girl kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then to see Nick, who's like obviously the most famous Carter, is very surreal. Like the House of Carters aside, it's just pretty crazy that a superstar like that is right in front of you.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. And we did it, we were shooting it, and you were there to, like, I could kind of feel your presence, because there was kind of like, he had like some people with him, and then we were shooting it for this thing we're doing, and you were kind of behind the scenes taking photos, and
yeah, I was Snapchatting. I was hoping you were going to reference me, and I kept trying to get the snap when you were like, "Oh, my buddy Shane's there," and then but that never happened.
We did get a photo with you in it, though. I made sure you
Yes.
got in the photo.
Yes, that was very cool. 73 likes on Instagram.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
that's no joke.
Yeah, how was it for you? Is it your most nerve-wracking, or is?
I wouldn't say it was nerve-wracking. What it was it just took them a long time to get there. Like, so like, we're supposed to do it at a certain time. So we're sitting, let's say you're supposed to do it at 2 p.m. we were sitting there from like all of a sudden it's like 2:32, 2:33. It's like a half hour later. So, and I'm just kind of sitting there under the bright lights.
And different people kept walking up the steps.
So you think it's him.
Yeah.
And then it's not him. And then he comes and then we just kind of like, it's a Backstreet Boys.
Your heart wasn't beating faster for him than other interviews.
No, maybe the first like minute and a half when you're talking, and then you settle in, and then you just kind of forget that it's just like, oh, it's a dude in front of you.
More of an asshole, you thought, or less of one?
I didn't think he was an asshole at all. I thought he was.
It was kind of a loaded question, come to think of it.
Yeah. So, other than that, Shane, what's been going on in your world?
Well, I just bought a house.
Yeah, I had to find out about this on Snapchat. You snapped you signing the papers.
Well,
first, congratulations.
Thank you. Also, thank you for the help on me moving out of the house, Mike. I'd like to thank you how you sidestepped that.
You moved out of your apartment in Toronto. You didn't ask me for help.
No, it was funny because I asked John Poplis, our friend. He's like a big 6'5" guy. We've talked about him on the pod before. And then I was like, he backed out. I was like, shit. And then you're like, Shane, you didn't ask me to help. I was like, funny, Pops just backed out. And I was wondering, you're like, I'm not a mover anyway, so it's probably best you didn't. I was like, yeah, because, I really could use it. You're like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, but I did need a little bit of help. But you are right. You're not like a huge force in the moving industry. Like you wouldn't be a huge help, but I could have used you. But I'm not mad at you.
This is crazy about how two people perceive two different sides of a conversation. I had no idea that you were fishing for help.
You didn't know that?
I swear on my mother, I did not know. That's why it's so funny to hear your side of that, because I wouldn't in a million years think that you were asking me, because I figured you just asked me outright. Like,
I was getting there, but you're like, I'm not a mover. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to force this guy.
No, I wasn't trying to cut it off at the pass. Like, if I get it out of the way, got to go. Not at all. If you just been like, hey man, I need help, I absolutely would have been there.
Okay.
100%. I did not realize that was what you were doing.
I'm not mad. But I was mad when I saw your house. Mike moved into a mansion in Hamilton. I thought we were all getting starter homes and shit, and I walk into the Playboy mansion. It's crazy. How much is this pod paying you? We were equals 2 months ago.
Here's the thing about Shane. He will ask anybody the price of anything. You'll ask people what they make. You do not care.
I like to devalue money so it has people I don't care how much someone makes. You know what I mean? But I did the very next day, not caring, and we're not competitive at all, but I bought a house the very next day. It was the first house we saw, actually.
Really?
Yes.
And we want it.
I didn't know. I'm buying it with someone else, and I'm impulsive, so I never take my opinion to heart. But if another person's like, yeah, that's the house, and I'm like, I kind of thought it was the house too, but I didn't want to seem crazy. So that's what happened, and then boom, got a house.
How long have you been dating your girlfriend?
Almost 8 months, yeah. So it's getting a little long in the tooth. It was I was feeling embarrassing to be a little houseless. So yeah.
Aren't you concerned? 8 months is kind of short in the grand scheme of things.
For Shaney boy, that's 10 years.
Was there any concern about buying a house with your lady, even though you've only been together for 8 months?
Not at all. What happens? Oh, let's say something bad happens. Boom, sell the house, we make a profit. It seems crazy, but then it's not. And Alex and I are my girlfriend's name's Alex.
Yep.
We're going to be together forever. Mark my words. What's the date? April 4th, Tuesday, April 5th. Alex and Shane forever. That's the hashtag. It's happening.
Have you seen any good movies lately?
That's all I got. Sorry.
That's it, and that's all. That is our episode. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes if you haven't already. All the artwork for the Mike and Much podcast is done by Jenna Gregory from jennasdoodles.com. You can follow us at Mike on Much on Twitter and Instagram. The Mike and Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman, and I am your host, Mike Veerman. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.